So no matter how great your solution is and how great your sales presentation is, at some point the customer is going to say, nah, I've got an issue. I don't want to do that. This is known as an objection, and the process to deal with that is known as objection handling. And there's some couple processes that are involved here. And a lot of people get wrapped around a tree. They're uncomfortable with this, but it's actually not that hard. But there is a structure to getting it done right. Uh, so what are objections? Objections are reasons that people say, stop, I'm not ready to proceed any further. I don't want your product. I've got a question that's a showstopper for me, something that is causing them a problem and you cannot continue. Fortunately, while these come up a lot, there are only about 10 or 12 objections in the whole world. I don't care whether you're selling airplanes or gym memberships or Buicks. That's basically the same variations on a theme. You're just changing up some of the details behind the scenes. So these are things like common objections are, we already have one. Oh, we tried it before and it doesn't work. It costs too much. It's not in the budget. You're going to hear that a lot. Whether you're selling insurance or new houses or whatever, that's going to come up. It's not a priority. That's another one. We don't need it. You'll hear that. It's too much work. We're not interested. We use your competitor, or we don't like you. We don't like your company. We've dealt with you before. We don't like you. But that's largely the gamut of it. I mean, there's a few other outliers, but those are kind of the meat. And if you think about it this way, objections are a request for information. They're not aware that they're asking. They think that they're putting their hand up and stopping things, but you have to realize that in parentheses they're saying, I'm not convinced. And so that's a question that you can answer. And there's a process for doing that, and we'll talk about how that can be done. Now, there are also sometimes these objections are serious, and you maybe have a real issue to uncover. And the way that you deal with it will be different. And I'm not going to get into explaining how you might handle pricing objections and other things like that right now. That's going to be specific to your product and what you're working on. But the process that you'll use for addressing these things is basically the same. Now, sometimes objections are legitimate and they really do get to a customer's concern and something they're not convinced about. Sometimes they're just kind of a blow off. Maybe they think, I just want to stall this. I don't want to make a decision. I just want to get rid of this person for a while. So stalls sound like objections, but a lot of times they're just a made up excuse, some kind of a cover up. You'll hear things like, I need to talk with my boss or my wife or my friend or my dog, whatever. That is kind of a stall. There's not a real objection. It's just, I need to think about it kind of thing. And that's not bad, but that's a consideration. Let me think about it. We're just going to keep our current product. Send me more information. That's kind of a famous blow off. Yeah, send me a brochure. So many sales reps waste their time sending out endless brochures, and that's not really the main issue. It's not a priority right now. Can you call me back in 6 months? These are procrastinations, but you'll hear these a lot. And the prospects may stall to avoid mistakes. They may be stalling to cover up the real issue, the hidden objection. Maybe they don't have any money, or they don't have the authority to make the decision, or they lied to you. Something that came up, but these are quick excuses that they're hoping they're not as confrontational, and they're hoping that they say, well, I need to talk to my boss, or I need to think it over. Something like that will make you go away for a while. It'll buy them a little bit of time. And that's okay in some cases, but you don't have to accept that. There are a lot of times that you can dig in and really understand what the objection is that they're truly representing, that they're hiding behind. Now, there are a couple different ways to whatever you determine the objections are. There's a couple different ways that you can handle them. One of the easiest ones is what we call feel, felt, found. It's a three-step process. And this is super easy. And you use those 3 words or words that have that same meaning to them. So one of the things with objection handling is somebody gives you an objection, that's in some point in their mind, it's slightly confrontational. So if you come back to them and say, well, you're an idiot, that's a stupid reason, fists up, they're ready to fight. You put them into a corner, you're not going to get through that. So one of the best things to do is validate it, make them feel good about it. They're not expecting that necessarily, but it also takes de-escalates the situation, takes some of the tension out. So if you felt found, the first step is to go, I get it. I understand why you feel that way. In parentheses, you're not an idiot. That's a really good question. You might even say that's a really good question. I'm glad you brought that up. So then you maybe want to clarify and make sure that you understand their objection. This is another thing that you want to do, is to make sure that you really understand the issue that they're bringing up. And sometimes a question here can get them to share a whole lot more information that's really, really valuable. So maybe you might be saying, they raised a concern, they're saying, I'm glad you brought that up. And maybe what you're saying is this. Let's say that you're trying to sell them skydiving lessons. You might be saying, well, what you're saying to me is that you're concerned about jumping out of a plane and hitting the ground really hard. Do I understand that correctly? And they'll come back, yeah. It's a perfectly good plane. The parachute, I don't know. I'm just a little nervous that things will go wrong. That's legit. Okay, I get that. I can understand why you would feel that way. That is good. The second part of felt found is felt. So you're going to bring it around now. So I validated you. I understand why you feel that way. Many of our happiest customers felt that same way at first. So you're acknowledging their feeling, and then you're bringing it around to start to handle the objection by showing that other smart people have had that same concern, and you understand that. That's validating again. What they found was that our parachute opened up and they landed safe and happy. And so that feel that way is the justification, validation. Felt is more validation, and then found is where you're sharing new information, something that was a surprise for some people. So then you can say what they found is that their parachute opened, that it was a great experience, they landed safe and happy. And then you can go back and you could say, when you're trying to get people to change their mind, it's helpful to give them some sort of a face-saving way to do that. So you could maybe say something like, with that information in mind, does that address your concern? Or is it possible we can go ahead and get you started? That might have addressed it. And they may say, yeah, okay, I get it. That's good. Let's go on. Or they may still have an objection and you have to deal with it. But that felt found way is a real easy way to deal with things. And a lot of times if you're just getting minor stalls or minor kind of objections during a sales process, that's a real common way to handle it. And literally, this is so easy, a child can do it. I know that because I taught my 13-year-old daughter felt found, and then suffered through that for the rest of her teen years, hearing things like, I understand why you feel like I have enough access to the car, Dad. Many dads have felt that way. What they found was that giving their daughter access to the car allowed them to much greater freedom of their own personal time and allowed the daughter to explore their own happiness, that kind of stuff. But that was a very easy way it becomes very comfortable. And you can change up the language. If you don't want to use the exact felt found, you can substitute things. Instead of saying feeling, you say, yeah, I get it. I totally understand that. A lot of customers thought the same thing. What they came to realize in the end was this. And so that it's the same felt found methodology, but you've kind of wrapped it in your own words and something that doesn't sound as obvious. And so that can be helpful. Another way that's a little bit more involved for handling an objection, but is also useful. It's a 5-step process. There's some elements that are similar to felt found. The first step is to appear pleased. Wow, thanks. I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really good question. Again, validation. And you're not making them feel cornered. They're expecting you to tell them that's a stupid question, and you've just validated that, and they're feeling smart, and they're kind of feeling the pressure off because they're like, well, they get it. They understand my question. They're not gonna push on me. Step 1 was appear pleased. Step 2 is restate as a question. So again, sort of like I did previously, you're gonna go back and say, so if I understand you correctly, what we would need to handle to earn your business is X. We would need to address your pricing concern. show you a way that you're going to get the return on investment that you're looking for here or need, something like that. Or just when you say that the price is too high, are you talking about in total? Is it a monthly payment kind of a thing? Is there some other issue? They will qualify that, and they might come back and they might say, uh, yeah, it's the total price. That worries me. That's a big number. Or they may say, I'm just worried about the monthly payments. That seems like a lot. I know it all adds up, but I'm just kind of worried about my monthly bill process. Those are two different objections, and you need to be able to understand that. So try to avoid, when you're handling objections, try to avoid the temptation to jump in and just immediately combat that initial question. Clarify it first. Make sure you're on the right thing. Step three, isolate the objection. What this is doing is this is trying to kind of put a box around it to see, is this really the only issue, or are there multiple things? And this is one of the reasons why you don't do this early in the sales cycle as often, because a lot of times early in the sales cycle, there may be a lot of things that would prevent a deal. You're not going to get the business right now because you've just started. But towards the end, maybe if you've gotten down to a place where you were ready to put in a proposal and close the deal, and now they're raising this objection why they can't. Your price is too high. We've decided to stick with what we already have. Something like that. We're going to buy from your competitor. These are things that you want to isolate. And so what you're doing here is you're trying to eliminate the possibility that they're going to keep coming back to you with new objections after that. Sometimes if it's an excuse that there's really another objection there, you'll charge in and you'll try to handle that objection, and you think you're great. And in reality, that was never the problem. They were hiding something else there. So you might say, let me ask if we could handle that question for you. If I could show you where we can get to the monthly pricing where you need it to be, and make it comfortable for you, could we earn your business? Or are there other questions? You want to know. And if there are other questions, that's okay. Let's get it on the table. If they say, well, we also want to know about this, we've got a concern about the way the widget works. Great. So let me just clarify. So if we're able to address your pricing concern and also address the functionality issue that you just mentioned with the widget, do I understand that correctly? That will help you, because now you're kind of narrowing it down, whether it's one issue or two issues or maybe even three. That gives you a target to go after. What you don't want to do is just handle the objection. You've solved the pricing objection, and then that wasn't the real thing, and they come another excuse and another excuse, and you chasing them around the tree and getting frustrated. So that isolation is good. Now, just because you isolate it doesn't mean that that's for sure that they're going to stick to that. They may tell you that it's isolated. You may handle the objection, and they may come back around and give you something else that's a new, I also forgot we have this other issue. That's okay, once or twice. If they do it once or twice, maybe they legitimately forgot something, a new issue has arisen, and you want to handle it respectfully. I'm glad you brought that up. I really want to make sure you're comfortable with this, so thanks for getting that issue on the table. But if they keep doing it and you realize that you're kind of getting a runaround, that they keep coming up with excuse after excuse after excuse, that's a bigger question, and you got a different issue. But assuming that you're able to isolate it, we've appeared pleased, we've restated it as a question, so we know what we're answering. Now we've isolated it, so we have a sense that if we answer that question, we've got the business. Now you want to handle that objection. Maybe if they had a pricing objection, you come back with your strategy to show where the price is going to be a good return on investment, that this gets them comfortable with this, or that you can allow them financing or something like that, that if the monthly payment was a concern, you can do something to bring that down. Whatever it might be, that is a separate issue. How you handle it will vary significantly by the product that you have. And I don't mean to make it sound like it's always going to be easy, but this process of kind of working your way down to knowing that that's the target you got to hit is really helpful. And then the last step after you've handled the objection, number 5, is close. So you would say, based on this new information, does that address your concern? Can we get you started? It's a little bit of a trial close in there, but you're then asking for the order. So that closing step is really important to take this objection, handle it, turn it around, and hopefully move forward, or at least know what you've got to handle to move forward in the future. So anyway, that is the quick view of handling objections, but use that process early in the sales cycle. Feel, felt, found is great. It's an easy one to throw out. Later in the sales cycle, using the appear, please, restate as a question, isolate, handle, and close. Those two techniques are some really powerful ones that will get you out of a lot of jams. So hope that's helpful. Happy selling.